During his career, Mike Tyson earned over $500 million. But in 2003, Tyson, with a debt of $30 million, declared himself bankrupt. How did this happen? As soon as a young Tyson began receiving his first significant paychecks for fights, his expenses proportionally skyrocketed. He could walk into a Gucci store and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on items he'd never use. Mike recklessly purchased dozens of cars, many of which sat idle, yachts, luxury properties, and fell into substance abuse. All of this prompts certain thoughts about money. We do everything we can to earn it here and there. Each of us is driven by different motives and goals. But all of this turns into a meaningless, endless rat race when it comes to the inability to manage money. According to statistics, over 75% of people on Earth live paycheck to paycheck, regardless of their income level. Yes, statistics can often be dubious, but take a moment to reflect on how you personally manage your income and what money means to you. More often than not, a proper perception of money plays a more significant role than the ability to earn it, because by default, human nature does not inherently include financial literacy. However, those few who manage to unlock this skill within themselves gain a certain advantage over others, a lucky ticket to break free from the rat race. After all, what's the point of earning a 5 or 6 figure income each month if by the end of the month you have nothing left? For some reason, the answer to this question isn't taught in institutions of formal education. And if you're ready to solve this mystery with me right now, get ready. Let's begin. Part 1. What is money? Or rather, what does money represent when we make purchases, acquire services, or receive a salary? What significance does money hold in these transactions? Money is usually defined as a tool that facilitates exchange, but this definition doesn't reveal all aspects of money. In my opinion, money today represents an equivalent of value. We give a certain amount of money equivalent to the worth of a product or service. At the same time, the value is determined not only by you, but by the market as a whole. Let's focus on one point. Money equals value. But how does this change the reality of someone living paycheck to paycheck? It might lead them to view money differently. But to move on to practical advice, we need to answer another question. How do you personally interact with your money? Part 2. Production and consumption. You create some form of value through services, labor, or the production of goods. You lose money when you acquire something, pay for internet, buy a new car or house. Now, think back to the statistics mentioned earlier in this video and consider your own situation. Think of all the money you've ever earned and spent. How much of that money remains with you today? How much of it have you invested in assets that generate passive income? And what part of this interaction between income and expenses is imbalanced and needs fixing? For many of us, the primary issue lies in consumption and spending. As mentioned earlier, the tendency to live paycheck to paycheck often doesn't depend on income level. How many examples of this statistic do you know personally? Colleagues, acquaintances, friends, relatives? Yourself? So, if you earn more than the average salary, but still end up with nothing at the end of the month, this suggests that you need to regulate your consumption before thinking about increasing your income. It's unreasonable to expect to get healthy while eating unhealthy food. And it's equally unreasonable to expect financial conditions to improve without changing the habit of overspending. Look at all those celebrities who filed for bankruptcy and draw this conclusion. Production means nothing if you have issues with consumption. Part 3. The rat race. Endless, doomed, and meaningless. Sometimes the rat race is mistaken for working a 9-to-5 job, but this comparison seems unfair as it excludes those who love their jobs or those with no fundamental issues with this routine. The real rat race exists on the brink of financial collapse, one paycheck away from ruin. It's the moment when money comes in and instantly disappears, accompanied by financial risks that could cripple you, job loss, health problems, or other similar circumstances. Now, Think about the psychological consequences of living on this financial edge. At some point, work becomes a necessity, and you start to realize you're stuck in a vicious circle. In the end, the things you own end up owning you. Where to find salvation? Salvation begins when you start taking your expenses seriously. Do you track your spending? How self aware are you as a consumer? How do you plan your future expenses? It's about systematizing consumption and finding ways to minimize it to eventually live within your means. In other words, adopting a lifestyle that allows you to save, invest, and build a safety net for emergencies. Part 4. Production. When it comes to personal finances, most experts focus on the consumer side of the equation. And logically so. It's always easier to cut consumer spending than to increase income. But understanding yourself as a producer is just as crucial.